Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is Kesubos Samach Aleph. We are holding 7 lines from the top of the Amud. Okay, back to the sugya of nursing a newborn baby. Rav Huna tells us like this. Bodaklon Rav Huna bar Chinana. Rav Huna bar Chinana gave us a test, posed us a challenge question. Hi oimeres lahanik. The wife says, I would like to nurse my newborn. V'hu oimer sheloi lahanik. The husband responds, don't nurse. He doesn't want it to affect her well-being or appearance. Who's in the right? Shoymin la, we listen to her. Why? Tzara didahu, because it pertains to her business, her discomfort. Should the milk accumulate without any outlet, or as some Mefarshim learn, she wants to bond with her baby. Not doing so would create emotional discomfort. So she wins. Hu oimer lahanik, v'hi oimeres sheloi lahanik. What about the other way around? He says nurse, and she says no. Ma'hu, what is the halacha? Now, we have 2 possible variations. Kol heicha de lav urcha. Suppose nursing is not really customary amongst the members of her family. It's not standard procedure. Rather, they hire a nursemaid for that purpose. In that case, shaymin la. She's certainly right. This is not my minhag, and even if it's customary in my husband's circles, I want to keep to my own standards. She has a right to do that. What about hi urcha? In her circles, it's standard. V'hu lav urcha, but in his family, it's not accepted. What is the halacha in this case? So again, she's saying, I'm not interested. I want to adopt your higher standards. And he says, what do you mean? Go nurse her. Go nurse the baby. Isn't that the way they do it in your family? So who's right in this case? What's the question? Basar didei azlinan. Do we adopt his customs? Or basar didei azlinan? Or do we assume her way of life, which would require nursing? That was the question presented to us, says Rav Huna. And I responded to him by quoting a brisa, which says, a wife only rises in standards upon marriage and never drops down. So, even if in her family they nurse, but in his family they don't, she has a right to adopt his standards. Amar Rav Huna Ma'ikra. Rav Huna continues on. Where is the pasuk which teaches us this concept? V'hibulas Baal, by Sarah Imenu. Instead of simply describing her as a Eshes Ish, a married woman, the pasuk uses unique language. Bu'ulas Baal for the drasha as follows: Ba'alei yasei shel Baal, v'loi bi'ridasei shel Baal. When a woman marries, she is granted these standards of her husband. She can go up a step and adopt her husband's lifestyle rather than go down to his lifestyle, to his standards. Rav Lazar Mehacha, we have another pasuk. Kihi haisa ein kol chay. This was Chava, the wife of Adam Arishain. Marriage is l'chaim nitna. It's meant to provide life and comfort, as opposed to discomfort. So even though Adam Arishan dropped drastically after the chet, after the sin of Adam Arishan, but to a certain extent it does not affect his wife. She doesn't go down with him. Marriage is only to her benefit. It enhances her life, rather than provide a letdown. Back to the Mishnah. Typically, an Isha performs a total of 7 jobs, chores, if you will. cooking, baking, laundering, etc. The Mishnah says if she happens to have a shifcha with her, a maidservant, whom she brings into the marriage, that gets the wife somewhat off the hook. It alleviates her load, her workload. So one shifcha takes away the first 3 jobs. What about the other ones? Hasha'ara avda. So the rest of the jobs she's still doing? Why? Look, a wife performs all 7. Now I have somebody instead of me. I have this shifcha doing all the jobs for me. Why am I involved in anything any longer? But she can tell her husband, look, I brought in a woman, a maidservant, in my stead. So why does the wife continue to have jobs? Because the husband responds, ha tarcha, this shifcha tarcha l'didi u'l'dida. She's going to be serving, my needs and her own needs. Remember, she's also a person who has to attend to her own personal needs. Well, that leaves you out. Who's going to provide for your needs, Mrs.? Right? So, sure, the shifcha can pick up some of the work, but the fact that you have a third person here, now we have myself, the shifcha, and you, and therefore the extra workload falls on you. So you can't just absolve yourself. You can't just give everything to the shifcha. You have to hold on to some chores. Shtayim, she brings another shifcha. She gets another deduction. Einam avashelas, ve'einam manika. Another 2 jobs are erased, are deleted from that list. But we still have another 2 remaining, right? The first shifcha deducted 3, second shifcha deducted 2 out of 7, leaving us with another 2. Ha sha'ara avda. So the wife still holds on to 2 jobs. She can tell him, look, now I have it all covered. I just brought in another woman to the scene. The tarchal dida, who will look after my needs and her own needs. That's one shifcha. And the other shifcha, the first one, will tend to your and her needs. So everybody's accounted for. Why do I still need to do anything more? Because the husband responds, well, now that we have a whole crowd here, it attracts visitors and guests. Kame orchi. What about serving the long-term guests? Uparchi, and the short-term, stopover guests. Mantarach, who's going to take care of their needs? So somebody has to do that. It falls on you. Shalosh, she brings a third shifcha into town. Eina matzah samita. That's it. No more making his bed, etc. Ha sha'ara avda. But apparently, other errands the wife will still be obligated to do. Now, why? Now she can tell the husband, I brought in an extra isha. Take care of the visitors as well. There's nothing left to do. Answer, Mishum da Amrla, because the husband responds, well, it goes, where there's a crowd, there's a party. Navish b'nei beisa. The more people we have here, we have you, me, 3 shifches. It's happening place. Navish, orchi, parchi. Suddenly the guests will arrive, and therefore you have to look after them. Yochi, if that's the case, afilu arba nami. The Mishnah says, well, if she brings 4 shifches onto the scene, she's totally off the hook on vacation. Well, the more people, the more guests. The answer is arba. Once you have 4 workers working full time, the team will take care of everything. Now it's already a whole team. Since we have so many workers, they assist each other. At the end of the day, they get everything done. You're meant to know. We're not speaking literally that she brought a shifcha into the family. Suppose the wife has a very elaborate dowry, which reflects her status and wealth, which typically would facilitate hiring a shifcha. that is enough to get the wife off the hook. If I could bring a shifcha, and I'm entitled to a shifcha, even if we didn't actually choose to hire a shifcha, the same halacha applies. She doesn't have to do these jobs. Tana, we actually added from a brisa, whether she actually brought the shifcha into the family, or this is another option. Let's say she was metzamtzim, she saved up some of the, from the spending money that he gives her, and she amassed a great fortune, which typically would facilitate purchasing a shifcha. At this point, even if they chose not to, she can sit back and relax, as though we have the shifcha. Arba yeshevas bekatedra. She has 4 maidservants. Sit back and relax in your armchair. Amar Yitzchak bar Chananya Amar Rav Huna. True, we don't force her to do any work, but we still are concerned about shalom bayis. Afal b'sha amru yeshevas bekatedra. Even though we allow her to sit back in the katedra, but there are certain very specific personal chores that the Chachamim recommend. Rashi says we don't force, but we recommend. It's an Eitzah Tova to enhance the relationship, to bring them close to each other, that an Isha should serve her husband in this manner. Aval mezegas leikais, she serves him his drinks. Umatzas leisamita, makes his bed. Umarchetzas leipanav yodav v'raglav, and washes his face, hands, and feet. Okay, on this topic, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Chananya, Amar Rav Huna, Kol malachis, she'is isha oisa labala. All the malachis that an isha typically does for her husband, those in the Mishnah, nida oisa labala. Likewise, even when she's in a nida state, then tamei, she can do all these same things, cooking, baking, etc., except for the ones we just mentioned recently. Chutz mimizigas hakois, except for serving his drinks, making his bed, and washing him. Rashi points out, we're speaking about, just making the bed on a superficial level, like making the blanket, etc. But the heavy work involved in rearranging the mattress and all that, that's a different story. That's davar shel toirach. That's been discussed in the Mishnah. That isn't necessarily the hatzah samita being discussed here. Right, so when we speak about the Isha who's, on vacation, but she's still doing Hatzah Samita to endear herself on her husband. Again, we're speaking about the making of the bed for appearance, for neatness sake. So that's Chavivos, and it would appear that likewise by the Nida, the point is just the finishing touches on the bed, which creates that dearness between the husband and the wife. Okay. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava, we have some exceptions to this rule. We're concerned about, endearing the Isha during the Nida. We don't want them to get too close. It can lead to inappropriate interaction. But if there is some sort of mitigating factor which allays that concern, then it's mut. Amar Rava, for instance, Layamaran el bafanav. These let's say making his bed and serving him, that's only to him in his presence, when he's there. Aval shaloi b'fanav, but if he's not observing, less lamba, that's not a concern. So being the observing, watching, that creates the chavibus that we're concerned about. Likewise, when it comes to serving that drink, we have exceptions. Shmuel machalfa leidvisu biyada desmala. Shmuel's wife would reverse it. She would serve him with her left hand, and that shinoi, that abnormality, would create a hecker, would make it noticeable that this is not the way it's meant to be, and therefore it would allay any fears of interaction. Abaya's wife would place the drink apuma de kuba on top of the pitcher. Rava, his wife, would place the drink abaysadya near the pillow, on his bed. Rav Papa Ashar Shifa on the stool. Amar Yitzchak bar Chananya Amar Rav Huna, another quotation from the same Amora on a totally different topic. Hakoil, all types of foods being served at a meal, mashin b'fnei hashamash. You don't have to provide the shamas, the servant, with his food right away. you can wait until the meal's over and then give him his portion. That applies typically, except where it can endanger him. It can make him salivate and create a health concern. Chutz mi basar v'yayin, except when you're serving meat and wine, in that case, allow him to have a sample right away. Amar Rav Chizda, what type of meat and wine? Basar shamin, fatty meat, v'yayin yashan, aged wine. Amar Rava, he explained like this: Basar shamin, fatty meat, that's a concern throughout the year. Kol hashana kula, whenever you serve it, make sure to share it with the shamas. Yain yoshan, the wine is only b'tkufas tamas, during the heat of the summer, where the aroma of the wine really arouses a desire, in which case you have to be sensitive to the waiter. Amar of onam batachlif, hava ka'imna. It so happens that once I was standing kamed Mar Shmuel, in front of Mar Shmuel, va'ayisule, and they served him tafshila da'ardi, some sort of mushroom dish, which really smelled good. V'ilav diyavli, if not for him sharing it with me, istakni, I would have been endangered. Amar Rav Ashi, another story. Hava ka'imna kamed Rav Kahana, I was present before Rav Kahana, but and they served him gargilide delifta, chopped up lefes. Some sort of vegetable, but bechala mixed with vinegar, maybe the radish. So they served him this real pungent dish. V'ilav diyavli, if not for him sharing it with me, istakni, I would have been in danger. Papa Amar, afilu tamarta dehinonisa. This whole concern with the waiter applies even to juicy dates. So the smell, the aroma really overwhelms him, and it's only fair to share it with him. Klala the Milsa, this is the rule. Call the islay reich, when something exudes a pleasant aroma. The islay kihuya, or Rashi says, or it has some sort of acidic effect to it, some acidic aroma, some pungent, Rashi says, like a chaymet, some pungent or sour or acidic scent. Then we have this concern of the shamas. Avua bar ihi. So Q, I think, typically means like sour, like acidic. Avua bar ihi, that was his name. Umin yaman bar ihi, another person. Chad, one of these two. How would he conduct himself? He was extra careful with this. Safi, he would share with the waiter, mikol mina umina. Every type of food would be shared with the waiter right away. No waiting. V'chan Safi, the other chacham, Safi, he would share michad mina. He would only take one dish and allow the waiter to sample it, and the rest, the other dishes, he would give him only later. Of course, the first chacham was better, right? He was being more sensitive, and therefore Mar, the first chacham, who shared right away, Mishtoi Elyo Bade, Elyo Navi, would converse with him as an indication of the fact that he was doing the right thing. Elyo was proud of him, and he was deserving of conversing with Elyo Navi. Umarli Mishtoi Elyo Bade, whereas the second chacham does not merit conversing with Elyo because he wasn't meticulous in this regard. The Mepharshim explain why is this specific to Elyo Navi. Elyo Navi at one point did not have access to food for 40 days. So this person who delays his own eating in order to accommodate and to be sensitive to the shamas is deserving of Gilui Elyo Navi. I think it's the Maharsha says that. Continues the one. Hanu Tartan Chasidi. There were these two pious men. Va'amila, some say, we have names for them. V'rav Mari, that was one. V'rav Pinchas was the other. They were both Bnei Rav Chisda, the children of Rav Chisda. Mar Kodem Safi. One of these Chachamim would first serve the Shamas before himself. Umar Ma'achar Safi. And the other Chacham would first serve the guests, himself the guest, and then share with the waiter. So that slight procrastination cost him Gilu Elyonavi, to Kadam Safi, the one who did it right away. Elyo Mishtar Badei was Zeicha to discuss things with Elyonavi. The Ma'achar Safi, the one that delayed, Loy Mishtai, Elyo Badei did not merit this revelation. Ameimar Umar Zutra, and also Ravashi, these three, Havu Kayasvi, they were sitting at Pischa, at the gateway of the palace, the Bey Asgur Malka, of the king Asgur, a Persian king, some say it was non-Jewish king, Chalif Va'azal. So before them passes by, Atur Niga, the maitre d', the head waiter, the Malka of the king, holding his tray of food en route to the king. Chazi Ravashi Mazutra. Ravashi suddenly notices that Mazutra is overcome by desire. The Chavar Ape, his face is totally pale. He's about to collapse. Noticing that he's in danger because he was exposed to this food which he could not partake. Shakal Vetzbase. So Ravashi quickly extended his finger and grabbed some of the food. Anach le bepume, and took some and put it straight into the mouth of Marzutra. Amr le, so the maitre d' got all upset. Afsadata the sudasa the malka. Look what you just destroyed the whole meal. The king is never going to use this food, which was tampered. Amr le. So the officers turned to Ravashi in an accusatory tone. Amait avadachi. Why would you do that? Amr Lucy responds, what do you mean, manda avadachi? A person who serves this food to the king, pasala machda malka. This is unfit for the king. Amr le. So they asked him, Amai, what do you mean? What's wrong with the food? Amr Lucy tells him, davar achar. Rashi learns the flesh of a davar achar, a swine, a chazir, which had leprosy, was inflicted by leprosy. Chazoi, I noticed in this tray here. This shouldn't be served to the king to begin with. But they checked, they didn't find any such meat. Shakal etzba asay. So Rashi learns he took the finger of the guy there, anachale, and he placed it on the meat. And he says, look, Amar Lu, he tells him, Hacha, right over here, mi bat gisu, did you check here? Look, Batku, they examined Ashkelon, indeed they discovered as he claimed. So now he was saved. Amar le Rabbanan asked Ravashi, my time samchas hanisa, why would you rely on something so unnatural and Nes? You took the food out and then you had to experience a miracle to save yourself. Amar Lu, he tells him, look, I had no choice. Chazoi, because I noticed ruach tzaras, a spirit of tzaras, the kaparcha iloyeh, which was hovering above my colleague Marzutra, and I had to quickly step in and save his life. I had no choice, and Baruch Hashem, we were spared. Ahurei Ma, he was this Roman fellow who was engaged in manipulation. The Amar Allah, he approaches this woman with a personal request. Min sabasli, would you marry me? Amar Allah, she says, what are you talking about? Never. Azal, look what he did. Azal, I see. Rimani, he grabbed a hold of some pomegranates, pali, he broke them open, va'achal kama, and he's eating in front of her. And she's getting hungry and hungrier by the minute. And he's not sharing with her. Kol maya, the tsarila, whenever she had saliva which generated in her mouth, balase, she would swallow it. V'lo yehavla, he refused to share it with her, despite the fact that she was totally taken by its aroma, by the whole thing. He's not sharing. Ad the zagla, until her body just became, see-through and transparent due to the abundance of saliva that was being generated by this exposure. L'soif, ultimately, seeing her in distress, Amrullah, he tells her, look, I have a deal. If I help you recover, Minsa Basli, will you marry me? Now she had no choice. Amrullah, and she tells him, sure, 100%, of course. Azil, I see money. So once again, he took some rimaynim. Pali, he cut them open. Vachal kama, and he ate them before her. Amrullah, and now he had some hearty advice. He tells her, Kol maya tzari lach, whenever you're experiencing this salivation, toif shadoi, spit out. Toif shadoi, spit out. So perhaps the second Toif Shadoi is actually what happened. Toif Shadoi, she did that, right? Toif Shadoi was his instructions, and then the Gemara says, Toif Shadoi, indeed she followed through, she spit it out. Adenavka mino, she kept on spitting and spitting, getting rid of this harmful saliva until Nafka mino came out of her ki hutsa yarka, like a green substance appearing like a palm leaf, vitzias, and that did the trick, she recovered. Okay, back to the Mishnah. Voice of its summer. So the Isha is meant to share in the the household income burden, and she goes and she works with Semer, spinning wool threads. But Semer in only wool material is she meant to be involved with. But not flax material. Our mission is following Rabbi Yehuda. The Sanya, as we learned in the Bryce, a husband cannot compel his wife to do the following: not to serve his father, or to serve his son, nor to offer hay for his animals, for his horse, donkey, who might attack her. Aval koifalitain teven lifnei bakari, but he can force it to feed his livestock, his cows, etc. Rabbi Yehuda, one more thing. Af einoi koifa. Likewise, he cannot compel her lasis with pishtan to get involved with flax making, flax threads. Pishtan masriach asapeh, because getting involved with pishtan just ruins your mouth. Masriach can either mean makes a foul aroma, or lashon of like it injures it. It like rubs out. It makes it chapped. Umisharbet as saim. Likewise, it bloats the lips and chaps them by Rashi says, because you have to actually wet them with your saliva as you work with this thread. So you're getting yourself involved, and it's not fair for the Isha. This only applies to Roman flax, which has this effect, and therefore she does not have to get involved with that. Now the Mishnah concludes with Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer Omer, Afila Yichnisa Leimeya Shifras. Even if she has 100 helpers at home, she has to still do some work to be productive. You know why? Being productive generates satisfaction, and it's good all around, good for everybody around. Shabbat Tola, because sitting idle, says the Mishnah in the Testament base, Mivio de Ziyama, brings to inappropriateness. Nothing to do, you're bored, it's never good for anybody. That's Rabbi Lezer. Then we have one more. Rabban Shimon Gamliel says, likewise, a person cannot sit idle. Shabbat Tola Mivio de Shi'amum. Has a different twist. Sitting idle with nothing to do brings to shi'amum, which Rashi translates as shi'goin. It could mentally destabilize a person. It's not good for your emotional and mental health. Okay? Omar Rav Malkayoy, that was his name. Omar Rav Adabar Abba. Halacha Rabbi Lezer. The halacha follows Rabbi Lezer. Even if she has 100 helpers, she still has to work. Omar Rabbi Chanina. Breder Rav Ika. We have Rav Malkayoy over here, and there is another Amira with a similar name. Rav Malkayoy with an Aleph. So this is Rav Malachav, and that's Rav Malkayoy. So in order to remember who said what, Each one of these Amoraim spoke 3 times. So Rav Bar Abba tells us, Chanina Brei Davika tells us, Shvud Shvachos V'Gumois, that's Rav Malchayov, or Malchayov, however you pronounce it. So when he spoke about the halacha of Shvachos, that's our Mishnah, that we follow Rabbi Lezer, even if you have 100 Shvachos, it's got to work. Who said that? Rav Malachav. The halacha of Shvud, that's halacha in Maseches Beitz over there. Also the same Amoira. Gumois, another halacha in Maseches Nida. It's all Rav Malachav. As opposed to the other 3 statements concerning bluris, growing of hair, that's an Avodah Zarah. Efer Makla, another halacha in Maseches Makos. Ugvina, something to do with non-Jewish cheese. Those were discussed by not Rav Malachav, rather Rav Malchayah. Okay, so it's 3 and 3. Rav Papa Amar, he had a different formula. Anything pertaining to Masnis Sin, a Mishnah, an explanation or a reference to a Mishnah, Umasnis Sa, or in reference to a Brisa, those were presented by Rav Malchayah. So he's actually changing the equation a bit, because according to the previous formula, Rav Malchayah was involved in Bloiris, Efer Makla, and Gvina, right? Those 3. Rav Papa is going to tell us that there's a 4th one that refers to Rav Malchayah, because anything pertaining to a Mishnah or Brisa is his domain. And that includes the item of Shvachos, our Sugya here, which is a reference to a Mishnah. So Rav Malchayah will get 4 out of the 6. Whereas Shmaitza, halachos pertaining to the Amoraim, not pertaining to a Mishnah or a Brisa, those were promoted by Rav Malchayah. The Simonach, you want to remember who's who? Masnisa Malkasa, the Brisas and the Mishnayos, they're considered like queens, like a queen of royalty. In contrast to the halachos of the Amoraim, in fact, we find throughout Shas that we ask a kasha on an Amoira from a Mishnah or a Brisa. So the Brisa and the Mishnah stand higher, and that's why it pertains to Rav Malchayah, which is also a lashon of kingdom and kingship and royalty. My Binai, what's the difference between the first formula and the Rav Papa's formula? You could pronounce Shvachos, one afkamina Shvachos, because according to Rav Papa, Shvachos, our sugya pertaining to a Mishnah, that's identified with Rav Malchayah because he took the Mishnayos and the Brises. So Rabbi Lezer, he says, Batala, not recommended. It brings to Zima, Tiznus. Rabban Shimon Gamliel Eimer, he uses a different lashon. Boredom brings to Shigain, Shi'amun, right? Mental instability. Hainu Tanakama, isn't he saying the same as Rabbi Lezer? Just different words describing the same concern. There is one slight difference between the 2. If the concern is that it can lead to inappropriate behavior, that's Rabbi Lezer, or the concern is that it can bring to Shi'amum, according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. What's the difference? If you're doing something of low value, at least you're doing something. The mithalala, she's playing around, keeping busy with silliness. Biguriyaisa kitnaisa, with little baby dogs. Or vinidar shir, some sort of game activity, which according to some Mefarshim, it's actually referring to some ancient version of chess. Interesting, chess. He brings up here on the side a game which involved a board with 36 squares, some black, some white. Ancient concept, chess. In any case, if she's involved in some sort of activity, even a frivolous activity, so according to Rabbi Lezer, the concern is still very real because it can bring to zima. So sitting doing nothing is bad, and sitting and being frivolous is also bad. It can lead to the same result. Whereas according to Rabbi Shimon, you're still better off than doing nothing. Shi'amum, Shi'amum is only when you're totally bored, stiff. But if you're doing something, as frivolous as it may sound, but at least you're occupied with something. Even if you're not really being productive and accomplishing much, you're still spared from shi'amum. But as the Gemara tells us, halacha l'maisa, Rabbi Lezer, right, that's what we said before, Rabbi Lezer, that you have to really be productive. Playing around is good for a break, but not for a full-time occupation. Continues the Mishnah. Hamader es ishtay mitashmi shamit. So in this Mishnah we're going to speak about the chiyuv of a husband to provide for his wife's emotional needs, which we call chiyuv oina, spending time together physically. If a person makes a neder, he says, look, the anah of being together with you is asr on me like a neder. You see, he can't directly make himself asr on his wife because, as Rashi explains, he's obligated to tend to her needs. The Torah obligates him. He's a shibud. He can't just absolve himself by doing a neder, but he could play a trick. He could say, look, the benefit that I could have by being involved with you, that is asr on me. Now he's forced to abstain. So how long could this carry on? There's a time limit. If it's more than 2 weeks, that's it, out. You're compelled to divorce and pay the ksuba. But up until 2 weeks, she can handle it. It's a 1 week maximum. I think more will explain the reason for the 2 weeks or the 1 week. Talmidei Chachamim, who would like to go to the yeshiva to learn. So even though they have a chiyuv oina at least once a week, as we're going to see later, but on occasion they can make a little trip for a bit longer. Yoitzin l'talmud Torah, they go out to the yeshiva to learn, shalei b'rshus, without really getting their wife's permission. They can just do it. Shleishim yom, they have a right to leave for 30 days maximum. Hapoy alim, Shabbos achas. Your typical laborer, even though he's meant to spend twice a week with his wife, but if he goes out on a trip, on business, it's okay for a maximum of a week. Now, what is the standard oina obligation? Ha'oina ha'amura b'Torah. The oina that the Torah obligates a man is how frequent? Ha'tayolin b'chol yom. One who is just unemployed, relaxing, taking it easy. He's not overburdened by any work obligations. He has a chiv on a daily basis. Now, the Mefarshim explained, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Igros Moshe, has a whole long discussion about this sugya of oina. He says like this: the concept of chiv oina is wife-based. The Torah is looking after the concerns and the needs of one's wife. He has to fill her emotional needs. Now, her needs are relative to his ability to provide for those needs. A little circular reasoning here. Meaning she is expecting a certain thing of him because he's home all the time. Why shouldn't he spend more time with me? So her needs are commensurate to his ability. He's available more, he's able to do more, I expect more of him. He has less ability, I expect less. Right? So in the emotional world, it's all relative. The needs are relative to the expectations. That's what Rabbi Moshe Feinstein explains. So a fellow who's a tile, he can afford to be around all the time. His wife expects him to do so. She rightfully expects him to give her more time. Therefore, it's a daily obligation. B'chol yom. Hapoyalim, a worker, shtayim b'Shabbos, twice a week. Hachamarim, a donkey driver who travels around selling his grain, achas b'Shabbos, once a week. Hagamalim, the camel drivers who take longer trips, achas l'shloshim yom, once in 30 days. Hasapanim, you see travelers, achas l'shish chadashim, once in 6 months. Divrei Rabbi Lezer. So at the outset of the Mishnah, we discussed a fellow who made a neder. I'm keeping away. According to Beis Shammai, maximum 2 weeks. According to Beis Hillel, 1 week. My time at the Beis Shammai, why do Beis Shammai allow up until 2 weeks? Gamri mi'aledas nekeva. They learned from the Isha who gave birth to a nekeva, who is now tummy for 2 weeks, right? According to the din and the Torah, it's a 2-week separation. So we see a person can survive for 2 weeks. So we allow up until 2 weeks. It's not recommended, but when he does it, you can't penalize him. Beis Hillel gamri mi'eledes zachar. Beis Hillel sourced their 1-week limit, and the Isha gives birth to a boy, where there's a 1-week separation. Beis Hillel nami nigmru mi'eledes nekeva. Why doesn't Beis Hillel go to nekeva, who has 2 weeks? Answer: Imi Yeledes Gamila. True. If they would have sourced their halacha from the Yeledes, Hachinami, you would have had a good question. Ella, rather, they're not going to the Yeledes. Beis Hillel Menida Gamila. They're looking at a regular Nida, who's Tameh typically for 7 days. Apparently, 7 days you can handle. But Ma'ika Mifli, what's the point of the Machlekes? Beis Hillel focus on Nida, Beis Shammai focus on a Yeledes, and Isha gave birth. Mar Savar, Beis Hillel hold, well, Nida is more of a fitting match to the Madaris Ishtay. Midi de Shchiach, Midi de Shchiach. It makes more sense to learn the Halacha and our Mishnah, which is something which is unfortunately a common occurrence. Rashi says on the 4th wide line, Midi de Shchiach, Kas, Shekoyes al Ishtay Madira. Apparently getting angry at one's wife is part of the human experience. It's something which is unfortunately Shchiach, getting upset and making the neder, and therefore it's more fitting to learn from Nida, which is also something of a common occurrence. So we learned the 7-day maximum from there. Umar savar midi duhu garam la, midi duhu garam la. Beis Shammai's approach is differently. He say, look, it makes more sense to learn neder, which is something that he propagated, from Yeledes, which as well as something that he brought about by bringing about the whole experience of the Yeledes. So therefore we go with the 2-week number. Amar Rav Machlekes, this whole discussion has only been mafarish when he specifies a week, 2 weeks, so she knows what to expect. It's a limited experience. She'll handle a week, she'll handle 2 weeks. Aval bestam, let's say it's an open-ended, unspecified neder. He's not giving her an exact, end date. Divrei HaKol Yoitzi LaAltar V'Tin Ksuba, all agree? Separate right away and give the Ksuba. You can't leave her hanging like that in unknown territory. Shmuel Amar Shmuel disagrees. Afilu B'Stam Nami, even if it's unspecified, have some patience. Yamtin, let him wait a bit. Shema Yimtza Pesach LaNidroi, because after all, he might find a Pesach, like an opening, a way out. He'll go to the Chacham and regret his neder. So let's not jump to conclusion. Let's not be so hasty to break up a marriage. Hopefully he'll find a way out. Rav disagreed. He said, look, if you're specifying a week, 2 weeks, you can handle, but you're not specifying, then don't let her hanging like that. Divorce. Asks the Gemara, this machlekes between Rav and Shmuel had already been discussed elsewhere. Why the repetition? They've already argued about this point elsewhere. The Snan, we have a Mishnah later on in the Masechta Amad, there's Ishtem Lahanesla. He makes a neder, you can't have enough from me. So how's he going to feed her? If the neder is only until 30 days, okay, there's a solution. Yamid Parnas, you can designate a middleman to provide for her. Yoisei Mikan, but past 30 days, Yoitzi V'Tin Ksuba, divorce and give a ksuba. V'amarav lo yishanu. This is only allowed elben farish. If he specifies 30 days, okay, she knows it's over in 30 days. Fine. Aval b'stam. There's no specification in terms of the time. It's an open-ended neder. Yoitzi la'alter v'tin ksuba. He has to divorce right away. Ushmul amar afilu b'stam nami. Even b'stam nami yamtin. Wait around patiently. Shema yimtza pesach l'nidroi. Although he didn't specify 30 days, but let's hope it won't go past 30 days. Hopefully, he'll find a way out. So why do we have the same machlekes in our sugya between Rav and Shmuel? Tzricha, both are needed. Di itmar baha. If only from our sugya, I would say perhaps there is a special reason. Baha ka'amar Rav, Over here, Rav maintains if there's no specified time limit, you have to divorce. Because after all, you can't have a middleman, fill your position as husband in terms of your wife's needs, emotional needs. So in this case, it's more severe, divorce. Aval ba'hi, the efshe b'parnas. But over there, with the mezonos and the support, you can have somebody step into your shoes. So in that case, perhaps Ema moidele lishmuel, he'll agree to Shmuel. We're a bit more lenient. We let it play out, and hopefully he'll figure a way out of his neder. If only from that case, I would say maybe Bahakam Shmuel. But this Shmuel maintains, wait it out, because in the meantime you could have the parnas looking after her. So hopefully we'll find a solution to the problem. In our case, where he's totally separate, and now she's hanging in this perpetual state of insecurity. Perhaps Shmuel would agree to Rav. This is not a way to go. That's why we need the halacha and machlekes presented over there and over here to tell us that in both cases, Rav and Shmuel held on to their respective positions. Let's do a quick chazar. In terms of nursing a newborn, she wants to do it and he objects. She gets her way, it's her business. Now, let's say he wants and she doesn't, and it's not the derech in her family, you can't force her. Let's say it is the derech of her family, but not in his family. The Gemara concludes, she's pater because oila imay, when Isha always steps up and gets her husband's, adopts her husband's higher lifestyle upon marriage. At what point do we say the Isha is totally pater from any jobs? Once she has 4 shefachis, or as the Gemara tells us, she's roi in terms of her financial standing to bring 4 shefachis. But we still recommend that you do those 3 specific chores which arouse chavivus between yourself and your husband, which incidentally are those same things that Anida is not meant to do to her husband unless it's derech shinui in an abnormal manner. We spoke about being sensitive to the shamas and sharing your food with him. We have the story of the Nace with the Persian king and the Roman fellow who was involved in manipulation. What does Batala do? It brings either Zima or Shi'amum. We paskin it's Zima is the main concern, and therefore even in engaging in frivolous activity, although it provides occupation, but not much in terms of satisfaction, and therefore does not really address our concern. The concept of oina is all lefi the tzorech relative to the isha's needs, which really corresponds to the man's ability to provide. A neder to separate from one's wife, according to Beishamai, at most 2 weeks. He learns from the Yoledas and the Keva, because in both cases he's the one who caused, who brought it about. Where according to Beis Hillel, it's a maximum of 1 week, which is derived from the Nida period, since both ideas, Nida and the kas which generates the neder, are things which are shchiach and therefore a good matchup. All the best to you and Atzlach Rabbah.